welcome to RANEPA Expert Talks. And I'm happy to introduce you our guest of today, who is Bриджит Гранвиль, and she is Professor of International Economics and Economic Policy from School of Business and Management of Queen Mary University in London. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you for having me. It's a great honor for me.
Yeah. Well, Bridget, we'll start with a large topic, and I hope you will manage to describe us something. And the first question is, what are global economic trends for 2020?
Global economic trends is a bit like 2020 is a bit like 2019. It's full of danger. One of the biggest danger is the monetary policy that is practiced by the advanced economy, that is quantitative easing, that is this practice of having very low interest rate or even negative interest rate, which means that advanced countries are getting more and more indebted, which means that you develop more and more inequalities, because essentially there is no, you cannot invest the pension of the people. You are taxing more and more the low and middle class. That creates a lot of unrest politically, and is what we see right now in France with a lot of demonstration. So that is one of the risks, is the current monetary policies that continue to be practiced, a bit like a drug that nobody, everybody's addicted and they cannot get out of it. This is one of the risks. Second risk, of course, is Brexit, at least in Europe, where nobody really knows what is going to happen, who is going to have to pay the biggest consequence, if there is any. Other trends seems to basically be more subdued right now. That was the China-US trade deal. It's a bit subdued, but we don't know. It may be some shocks. It's what economics is about. There is always some global shocks that can come at any corner.
What are the lessons learned from economic development last year?
Last year?
Or last few years?
Well, I wish, actually history and economic history and that lesson could be learned. But what we see right now is that politicians don't seem to learn many lessons. Right now, many people think that inflation is something on the past, is this kind of museum piece that will never reappear. And they've forgotten that it could be, at the corner. And certainly, politicians are not ready. So I think very few lessons have been learned, unfortunately.
I see. Well, I hope this is the room for the scientists, for professors to come in.
I think I always remember my first year of economics and the very first day. I was very privileged. I had one of the best professors probably people ever had. And one of the first things he said was, always remember, I was studying economics, always remember politicians decide, economists advise. And if they don't want to listen, they don't. Most of the time, they don't.
Well, got it. So, can we talk a little bit about business investment and climate in Russia?
I don't mind doing related to the global economy, but I used to study, as some people may remember, very closely Russia. But right now, I really focus more on the euro area. And one thing I can say, and I think people that used to know me here know my line on that, is to warn Russia about ideas that were there in the 1990s and unfortunately has never disappeared in Russia, is this idea of forming a monetary union with Belarus, of whatever country. That was true 92 when we basically dissolved the ruble zone, and there's still discussion right now. But one thing this government should always look at is the euro area. If we have stagnation in the euro area, and right now a lot of political unrest, the main reason is the euro. that is to have a single currency for countries that are fundamentally economically in divergence. You can't have one interest rate for countries that do not perform the same.
Yeah. Well, we're here at the university at RANEPA, and so I would like to get your opinion on the risks and potential of youth employment and unemployment.
In Russia or over the world?
Over the world and in Russia, if you have the data.
I don't have the data. For me, I mean, you know, what is so hopeful with youth right now is that there are a field of new technologies that are developing, such as blockchain, a field of new areas, such as climate change. And I think if I was young, this is where I would like to become an expert and to study those areas as much as I can.
Yeah. Well, Bridget, I know that you've been working with Егор Гайдар in 90s, and we are privileged to have you as a guest of Gaidar Forum. So what are your impressions of today's forum?
I'm very impressed. I'm very impressed by the organization. For me, it's extremely emotional to be here, to see everything that has been achieved. Is extremely moving for me even to walk in the street of Moscow, to see how beautiful it is. I wish I was walking with Егор Гайдар right now, but I hope that people will remember how grateful they should be to Егор Гайдар. For me, it has been a privilege, an honor, an enormous piece of luck that I will never forget.
Thank you very much for joining us, and good luck.
Thank you.